Despite the pandemic, people are still heading to the polls to vote in the primary runoff election. People who vote today have to use hand sanitizer, as they walk into buildings and obey the 6-foot markings on the floor. The absentee office saw a huge spike in absentee ballots for this election, but with social distancing measures being taken, many people actually feel comfortable voting at their polling place.
It was different because of how everything else in the world is different. But it was very well put together.
It was.
They had the hand sanitizer there. All the volunteers were very knowledgeable about what they were doing. We got in, we got out.
Yeah, they told you exactly what to do, so there was no room for error.
Face masks are recommended, but they are not required to vote.